What's up guys, Nathan here. Today I'm going to be doing another sort of talking head type video, and that's because I'm working on a video about crafting and it's requiring a lot of research and work just to get it right, so I figured I'd take the time to read some comments from my last video and sort of continue the discussion about trading that I started last week. Again, this video is going to be a little longer than my usual videos. It's not going to be nearly as long as last week's, but I still want to give you a little table of contents so you can sort of click around and you don't have to sit and watch the whole thing. But anyway, here's the order things are going to go in. First, we're going to go over a quick summary of my opinions, aka everything I said last week, but instead of 27 minutes, I'll try to knock that out in about 30 seconds. Then we're going to try to go over some of the good comments from last week. And the reason why I say good comments is not because there are some comments that obviously disagree with me versus comments that agree with me, but there's some comments that are just, you know, sort of personal attacks or whatever, calling me entitled, and they're not really productive. So we're just going to try to skip past those and talk about the ones that are critical in a way that lets us have a discussion. And then thirdly, we're going to try to see if there's any reassessment of my opinions or if there's any new ways we can shape the argument that I came up with last week that makes more sense in the face of all this new information, all these new educated, awesome opinions that I was able to read over this past week. Trade can and should be improved. It's no secret that trade can be a lot more enjoyable for every party involved, whether you're a high-end or low-end player, so I think GGG should prioritize improving it in some way or another. I think you can still maintain GGG's trade manifesto, stay in the lines of that, while also making improvement. There is no reason why these need to be permanent solutions. These can easily be tested out in like a 1 month, 3 month, voided, non-voided, just some kind of temporary league. So, without further ado, let's jump into the comments. Okay, so let's get started here. I tried to grab the most popular comments, but also the ones that were most well thought out and worth going over. So let's do it in the opposite order of most recent. aka, let's do it in the order of oldest first, and then we'll work our way up to the more recent / popular ones that have made it to the top of the comment section. The first comment we have here is from Nested Quantifier 5 days ago. And I'm not going to read you the whole thing, but I'll try to do a little quick overview. He says, "Trade is fine, there's no major problems. We just need to ignore the people that threatens to quit the game over trade and never does." Okay, people should not have to respond to trade. That is a good thing. Trade feels like shit, so does dying at level 99. Maybe we should fix that too. Make it impossible to die. This game is not here to make you feel good about trading, just as it isn't here to make you feel good about dying at 99. Both are needed for the game. The argument, "it feels like shit," is an absolutely terrible argument made by an incredibly egocentric people who don't understand game design. It's an argument that can be applied to absolutely every challenge in the game. These arguments are absurd and have no substance. It's exactly these things which feels terrible that makes the game great. Okay, so let's try to break this one down here. The problem I'm seeing, at least the reason why I tend to disagree with this comment, is first of all, he says, we just need to ignore the people that threatens to quit the game over trade but never do. Now, I was never threatening to quit this game. I love Path of Exile. It's my favorite game right now, and it has been for probably the past year. So I'm not threatening to quit the game. I'm just saying I love the game and I want trading in it to be better. That being said, I think ignoring the people that quit the game may or may not actually be the correct outlook on this. You could argue that there's enough people not quitting the game that it doesn't matter if people do quit the game, but I personally think having people quit the game over something that shouldn't be that big of a deal. I mean, trading, that should not be the, make or break for somebody to actually continue playing Path of Exile, because there's so much content outside of trade. But then he says people never actually quit, so I don't even know what this argument is. Then he says people should not have to respond to trade. That is a good thing. There are no problems. It's only a problem if you believe you deserve an item on the market, which you don't. Now, this one kind of irks me a little bit, because saying people shouldn't have to respond to trade, that is a good thing. He's saying it like these are facts, and I think these are hardcore opinions. If somebody lists an item for a certain price, I don't know. I don't know if there should be a system in place, like an auction house, to force them to sell it at that price, but we are at a place where it's so uncommon for people to actually want to sell things they've listed at for certain prices. It's actually not only is it they're not forced to sell it, but it's also socially acceptable for them to just not sell it. And I'm not saying I believe I deserve an item on the market, but I think, maybe I am a little entitled, but I think if somebody lists an item for a certain price, I think I would deserve them to at least message me back and tell me why they're not selling it. Now, I understand people are in maps, they don't want to do 1C trades, but if you don't want to do 1C trades, don't list things for 1C. Yeah, I know I'm going to get hate for that one, but that's just my opinion. And then this whole next little spiel he talks about here has to do with things not feeling good being a bad argument. I don't know. This one's just kind of asinine nested quantifier. I'm sorry. There's a lot of things that feel bad in video games, but those things that feel bad, like dying at 99, those things also tend to be fair occasionally. Obviously, PoE does have its fair share of bullshit, but that's not the same thing as trade. Trade is shitty because of how people act to each other, and that could easily be fixed with introducing some systems to force people to interact with each other in a way that's more reasonable and meets expectations that are like, what people expect in real life when doing transactions with other humans. I'm not suggesting we change any other aspect of the game. I mean, there's arguments about how certain challenges have become more unfair, and Syndicate is bullshit, Cortex mods with hard mods is bullshit, Owl the Crystal King with hard mods is bullshit, but I'm not suggesting we change any of that stuff. I mean, my main problems here are with trade, and the fact that you're trying to compare this thing that feels really shitty but can also easily be fixed without impacting actual gameplay. That's not an apples to apples comparison. So I hate to be the guy that already wants to hold fast to his opinions, but this first comment makes me want to just move on and look at something different. So sorry, Nested Quantifier, I can't say I agree with most of your arguments. Let's go on to the next one. Okay, the next one, this is a little shorter, so I'll just read it all. We have it from Kyle Wilson, 4 days ago. He says, I disagree completely. I like the fact that I can list an item and not have to respond to everyone. I like that it's a real economy, and with that, people are going to try to get over on another. I think it's healthy. I like the fact that I can list an item and not have to respond to everyone. I like that it's a real economy. Is that really how it works in the real world? I mean, yeah, I guess by and large you can choose to sell something and you don't necessarily always have to sell it. If he's referring to it as a real economy, I think I should play the card that it's still considered socially acceptable to sell an item to somebody at the price you list it at. And even in a much simpler setting, even if you were to go to like a grocery store and you pick out like a lemon and you want to buy a lemon, you take it up front and the person looks at you and just says, AFK, that's that's not really how the real economy works. So I almost want to see eye to eye with him, but at the same time, I don't think his arguments actually have very much substance. But I don't know, that's just my opinion. Sorry, Kyle, I'm a hater. What can I say? Okay, here's one of the more useful ones. I don't even know why I screenshotted this. I disagree with almost everything you're saying. Okay, cool, thanks. Why? Okay, here's my next one. This is not so much an argument, but just trying to give me some personal advice. I would encourage you to play SSF. Typically, this is all I play anymore because it's much more rewarding crafting my own items. All trading does is slow me down from playing. This is actually a really cool comment, and I really like the fact that people are making a move to SSF because they feel like trade leagues just aren't for them and they don't want to deal with that economy and they don't want to feel pressured. But for me, I don't think the game is designed around SSF enough. Part of the fact is that I do have a YouTube channel where I try to teach new players about systems that they'll typically see and interact with. And if I'm not playing a trade league, I can't see these systems as much, so I can't make as good of videos. That's like the very pragmatic argument. But the more personal argument is I like to be able to do builds that use weird uniques. I've played Poet's Pen's characters every single league since they were nerfed. Not since they were nerfed, until they were nerfed. And I just wouldn't be able to do something like that in SSF. I'm not going to get 2 Poet's Pens in SSF, hell no. Or, to have an even more extreme example, it's not like there was any way I would ever synthesize anything worth using in SSF. It's disturbed. I see where you're coming from. This is like awesome advice. But the truth of the matter is I like trying too many different builds and using niche items and using niche uniques. So I'm not really interested in limiting the capacity of builds I can try and builds I can play and show you guys. Oh boy, this is one of the longer ones here. Okay, so I'm going to try to skim through this. Well, I agree with David Brevik and Chris Wilson on why trade in popular ARPGs need to be a bit painful and time-consuming. The easier it is to search for what you need and acquire in-game, the closer it gets to the issues created by the D3 auction house. As far as them not responding, as well, that's part of the game. They want players to decide if it's worth it to stop what they're doing to hide out and sell. As far as my solutions, he's saying, I don't understand how seriously bad an auction house could be. Limiting trades per day won't work as it's free to play and you can make dozens of alt accounts. Better in-game tutorials are fine. This game isn't really designed for people unwilling to do legwork on their own. Trying out an auction house for a league would require a lot of dev time dedicated to making it, and there is no simple solution to this problem. As far as comments that really disagree with my own views, I think this is one of the really well put together ones. He starts out with this appeal to David Brevik and Chris Wilson, which is almost like a sort of celebrity appeal. I don't know, but these guys are, of course, fantastic authorities on the subject of ARPGs, so I see where he's coming from there. And then he brings up the D3 auction house, and this makes me feel like I don't have the background, and I mentioned this in my last video, but I've never played Diablo 3, so I can't help but wonder if maybe he has a point here that I'm missing since I've never played D3 and seen how the auction house supposedly destroyed that game from the get-go. But from what I understand, the main reason why D3 was destroyed from the get-go is because it has kind of a shallow endgame, and the skills and customization available to the player are nowhere near what PoE has. So from what I understand, that's what caused the game from not being able to succeed long-term, but I don't know, I could be wrong. Then this is a really good point. He says, as far as not responding, well, that's part of the game. They want players to decide if it's worth it to stop what they're doing and go to their hideout and sell. This is actually pretty interesting because it makes a lot of sense. That kind of is the whole reason why people don't respond to trades, unless, of course, they're price fixing or they don't like you personally. The main reason really is they're in the middle of something that the 60 seconds it takes them to leave and go trade with you is actually 60 seconds where they would have made more money if they would have just continued the activity they were doing. Yeah, that's actually pretty reasonable. It kind of sums up the whole explanation of people not responding very well. His first point, he says, I don't understand how seriously bad the auction house could be. You know, maybe I don't. So yeah, I guess that's a viable argument because clearly I haven't played Diablo 3. Maybe I need to play Diablo 3 and just see how game-breaking it truly is. Limiting trades per day wouldn't work because it's free to play, I guess, but the thing is I was talking about limiting trades per day and then also allowing you to expand the number of trades you can make by just playing the game. So yeah, I guess some people might just make a bunch of alt accounts and hide behind VPNs, or they might just play the game a lot and unlock all of those trades. That seems more enjoyable and potentially faster if you're good at leveling. And then better in-game tutorials, he has a point about that, but that's not really relevant. And then the auction house for a league, this is also a really valid point, and I brought this up last time, is it would require significant dev time for them to create something that's usable by players. Yeah, I don't blame him for having this point. That's why I said last time, you know, as a player, I would be willing to test something that they took the time to make to sort of balance the time they would have to spend making it. Obviously, that's not really a fantastic comparison, but still, there has to be some push and pull here. And yeah, he sums it up here with there being no simple solution, and permanent SSF would, with better drop rates and crafting, would be the best solution. Obviously, GGG doesn't want to do that. You can't really sell microtransactions as easily to people who aren't playing with their friends and regularly showing off to their friends. And I don't mean to be like tinfoil hatty, but I'm just saying it's really sort of antithetical to their whole business model to give us permanent SSF. It's just not like sustainable. So yeah, all in all, you bring up a lot of fantastic points. Frodo Fraggins, great name by the way. The real problem with me responding to you is I clearly haven't played D3. I don't have the background to really see how bad an auction house could be. So maybe I need to try that out and reassess my arguments. So thank you so much for all of these opinions, Frodo Fraggins. Fantastic stuff. Next one. Okay, so I really like this one. It's 3 words, auction house orbs. And this is like, seems like some asinine comment that doesn't help anybody, but really just completely sums up a lot of people's opinions, which is leave the trade site intact for basically any relevant items that could be used to upgrade your character, but make an auction house for orbs, aka chaos orbs, alt orbs, you know, just all those things that you need to craft or, you know, convert your currencies or buy maps. And I would go a step further with this. I would say not just orbs, but, you know, fragments and maps as well. So yeah, this is also another suggestion. And I think all in all, I mean, I didn't really go over it because I kind of went super crazy out here when I was talking about the possibility of really revamping and adding a new auction house. But if we want to do something more simple, I would totally settle for just an auction house only for orbs, fragments, and maps. So if that's something that's even remotely on the table, GGG, I mean, please hear me. That's a really good idea too. Okay, so I know I said I'd be focusing on the more constructive comments, but I just wanted to throw this one out here because it's kind of funny. Rick Sanchez Jr. says, "The amount of entitlement for you to have it tailored to your trading experience because you've never experienced one like this before? LOL! As if this video is going to have any impact whatsoever. I mean, at least it's better than having those insane thoughts trapped in your head. But it is not how this game came out, and just because you were spoiled by some bullshit WoW/Diablo/RuneScape, that's a lot of bullshit, by the way. You named 3 really fucking major games. Auction houses doesn't mean you will get them here. Go to those games if you can't handle it." I mean, he goes on to say here they're not going to change anything and wishes me a little facetious luck. All in all, my boy KFC Fanatic puts it well when he says, "Yikes." And there are some, little nuggets of truth in here. I do kind of come off as entitled and egocentric, as the other guy said earlier on. The truth is, I really do think these kinds of changes could be beneficial for the overall health of the game. Clearly, you disagree. The next comment we have is slainbyblind, who says, "I think some of your suggestions were okay, though many would just drown the game out and make it plain AF." He says that the game would be drowned out and plain AF, and I actually do think that is one of my concerns with some of my suggestions. That's why I took the time to really think about and propose some more unique, different ones. Obviously, auction house isn't the most inspired suggestion, but auction house with trade limiting tied to account is kind of unique and flavorful. But I see where he's coming from, because the current state of trade, as frustrating as it can be, it definitely, like I said, lends itself to some unique experience. I spoke about some of those last week. And I think his concerns may be valid, because if we're doing things that are going to cause the game to be overall less interesting and be more stale, then it could be doing more of a disservice than anything beneficial. So this is actually a very good point, and I think that's something that the developers probably have been considering heavily when they have been deciding over and over again they don't want to add an auction house or make trade any easier than it is already. So yeah, all in all, good comment, slainbyblind. Very quick, simple, to the point, and valid. Okay, so this was the most popular comment on the entire video. I think it was, anyway. And it was by Van Dam. He says, very simply, "An auction house would straight up destroy this game. Individual players are hyper-focused on their own personal convenience and not seeing the bigger picture. GGG is smart to remain steadfast on this." And then we just have a couple responses here. I included these because I think they kind of show the different opinions on the same matter. "I agree, top-end players are incredibly selfish." Then Nested Quantifier comes in and says, "Exactly this. Reddit needs to shut up about this. Trade needs to be inconvenient. Every single argument that demands an auction house straight up ignores any argument and just argues based on what they're claimed to be popular ones." I think the biggest problem with this whole comment chain is it doesn't really back up any of its claims. Obviously, Van Dam really dislikes the idea of an auction house, and 7 people have upvoted him, so people do clearly agree with this in some capacity, that an auction house would destroy the game. I don't see it. Maybe I don't have the experience. I've played games with healthy economies that have auction houses. I would like to have this guy back up his own opinions. He does say that players are hyper-focused on their personal convenience, and that helps explain why people like me want an auction house, but it doesn't really explain why we're not seeing the bigger picture and what the bigger picture is. And then he says GGG is smart to remain steadfast on this. Okay, and then these guys kind of just don't make sense to me. This guy says top-end players are incredibly selfish. That doesn't make sense to me because I'm not a top-end player, and I've talked to players from all over the spectrum in terms of how they interact with leagues, and there are tons of players who want an auction house regardless of how high-end they are. If anything, I think I've talked to more ultra top-end players that are fine with the status quo and don't want an auction house. So this comment just doesn't make sense to me. I don't know why you're bringing Reddit into this. Obviously, Reddit says some dumb shit, but occasionally they do come up with some smart ideas, especially the PoE subreddit is actually a lot better than a lot of other game subreddits I've been to, even though it is kind of just item showcase every other day, which is irritating. But yeah, I'm not Reddit, by the way. My name is Nathan, and I'm talking about opinions that I have, and I'm trying to address them in a critical way. So Yeah, I don't know why that comment means anything, so thanks, I guess. Okay, next comment is Plotplier, who says, no auction house makes us to buy premium stash tabs, which is, I think, one of the first PoE incomes. So why would they code an auction house then? No, for real though. I kind of see where this argument is coming from, and I actually really can agree to some extent because I've played other free-to-play games. But I think at the end of the day, I don't think PoE makes that much off stash tabs. I mean, I think they make a small amount when people wait until a sale and then buy all the tabs they need, and then they kind of just use those tabs for forever, unless you're somebody who's like an ultra top end player who's constantly like trying to buy a new quad tab so we can have a new project to put shit in. I don't think the amount of income they make from stash tabs is really relevant enough to validate why they're not putting an auction house in. I think a lot of their money actually comes from cosmetics and supporter packs, especially the whales who go out and buy the massive supporter packs. Yes, I've been there, done that, feels bad, man. I like pretty hats, what can I say? So actually, my tinfoil hat does kind of agree with the concept of this comment, but I think at the end of the day, I don't think they make that much money off stash tabs, so I don't think this is a factor for them. Next comment we have is from Ivandot. Ivandot says he's playing from Betha, and all you need to improve trading system is change the AFK timer, so at 10 minutes you AFK DC from the server, come up with a way to punish or not encourage players who don't respond, to give people the opportunity to continue the simplified possibility of trading among themselves, being on maps or another place. And no auction house, please. Auction house will kill this game. How it killed Diablo and WoW. It's kind of a hot take that the auction house killed WoW because, anyway, I just don't think the auction house is relevant for that. But let's go over his points. He says, change the AFK time, so after 10 minutes you AFK disconnect from the server and your items will stop being indexed. There's already like a pretty good AFK system. If you don't do anything for, I think, maybe 5 minutes or something, your items will now have a little AFK tag to them, and I think a lot of people will just ignore AFK players unless they really want an item. He says, come up with a way to punish players who don't respond. I don't know what bending means, but yeah, we do need some way to get players to not respond as much as possible. But again, this is something that's a pretty contentious topic because clearly, based on the other comments, a lot of players don't think they should have to respond to trades that they take the time to list. So as much as I would like a way to prevent people from listing items and not responding, I don't know how we would do it that would not only stay in line with GGG's trade manifesto, but also be okay for the players that I know would rather not have to respond to the trades they list. And then he says to give people an opportunity to continue the simplified possibility of trading among themselves. I think he means the idea of maybe somebody can send you a trade request while you're mapping, and it just gives you a quick little pop-up, tells you click it, and you confirm. I'm guessing that's what he's talking about. And I think that's actually kind of a cool middle ground. I'd have to explore it a little further. But yeah, that would definitely make trading a little easier. And it definitely would help solve the problem of people not wanting to give up a portal or stop what they're doing just to make a small trade. Good comment, Ivan. That was actually a good comment. Definitely made me rethink my opinions a little bit. But again, these auction houses destroying games. I need to freaking do my research. Apparently, these have completely destroyed games. I didn't even realize. I should add, though, I do know about the real money auction house in Diablo 3, even though I've played it. And when people talk about that auction house destroying the game, I usually think that they're talking about the real money being implemented into it. And I, in no shape, way, or form, am interested in a real money auction house in PoE. So don't get me fucked up on that front. That would be not something I'm interested in for this game. Kyle Blackmore says, at the very least, keep the exact same trade system as it stands today, but add it into the game with the same functionality of PoE.trade, Ninja, AffixDB, and letting us query items right in-game without having to tab back and forth. Whisper button next to posting, etc. Same trading, small step forward without upsetting the status quo. As far as very moderate to chill solutions to the trading problems that exist today, Kyle, I think you've really hit the nail on the head. I don't think I've seen the specific idea of having literally like the official trade site, PoE Ninja, and the PoEDB all available in the game. But I actually really like it. I don't know about PoE Ninja and AffixDB because that's kind of a lot of overwhelming information to shove in people's faces. But I think having the trade site in-game, especially the official trade site, maybe redo the UI a little bit to sort of match PoE's current UI in-game, But yeah, I really like this idea of inserting the trade site into the game itself, because that would make more people more likely to interact with it. I think get over the hump that is learning to trade initially, so they can start trading more regularly and not just being so burdened by what feels like this really difficult can of worms to open. So yeah, Kyle, I don't know if I think your solution is enough, but I think it's still a really good solution, and I like what you've proposed here. Definitely something to consider. Okay, so this is probably one of my favorite comments, and it is actually the top comment. It's not the most upvoted, but for whatever reason, the YouTube algorithm puts them at the top. Left by Romain Carpentier, I think, or Romain Carpentier. I don't know. I don't speak that language anymore. And he says, if you play the game, you can understand why people don't answer. I list many items as long as I can expect to sell them for 3C, but when I'm mapping, nexusing, delving, or doing any content that involves fighting, I usually don't respond, because I may die. Very reasonable. I haven't tried it yet, but Mercury Trade can solve this problem, so why not implement a pop-up message for a party invite or trade? In case you don't know, he's talking about Mercury Trade, which is a add-on you can get for Path of Exile that's totally within the terms of service. And basically what it does is when somebody sends you a message, you can respond just by pressing a hotkey on your keyboard or even just clicking something that pops up on your screen. And for example, if you're in the middle of doing something like lab, you can have it send back a message that says, in the middle of lab, give me 5 minutes. So that's kind of just a cool add-on that this guy thinks should be implemented into the base game. Why is there such thing as an external website? Why can't an NPC give you the same function as PoE Trade? And this is basically what the last comment said, or the comment before the last comment, I'm not sure. But it's the idea of having the PoE Trade or pathofexile.com/trade functionality within the game, especially if you tie it to an NPC. That's a really cool dude. So maybe if Parandus goes core, like core, not like this pussy-ass Zonomod, you know, occasionally spawning with a syndicate core. Yeah, maybe it would be something like Kadiro could be like the trade NPC, and you talk to him and it pulls up an in-game version of pathofexile.com/trade. So that's, again, another solution that I think is cool. It's at least better than what we have now. And then this bit here, he says, I bought some supporter packs and tabs, but why does a free-to-play game lock trade behind a paywall? This is actually kind of the big bad secret of PoE, I think, because you tell a lot of people like, oh, you know, the game's completely free. And of course the game's completely free. You can play from Act 1 to Act 10 and never, you know, spend money on a stash tab or cosmetics or anything like that. But if you want to get seriously into endgame in a trade league, you probably should buy stash tabs. So yeah, that is kind of a little truth about this game. It is a little bit pay to win if you're playing a trade league. But how fantastic of a free-to-play model the game really is. Again, it's better than a lot of other free-to-play games out there, but I mean, I've played like Dota 2 for so many years, and that game is the absolute pinnacle of free-to-play and getting the content that you need to be competitive up front. So yeah, PoE could improve on that front, but I don't think they will, because it's the status quo, and it still makes them some money, so they're not going to just go back on that. And then his last point is one that I think is probably pretty contentious, which is, I love this game and I'll continue to play it, but it's really hard to drive my friends into this game, even though they like IRPGs, because the first acts are tutorial, not very engaging, too many aspects, rely on third-party website tools. So a lot of people would just respond to this with, your friends are fucking casuals, we don't want them anyway. But, you know, I think this is a very valid point. Like, why can't we just put some of these third-party tools like Mercury Trade, like the trade website, put it in-game so people don't feel like they have to fucking spend an hour on Google just to, like, before they even launch the game. Like, they don't want to download auto hotkey and shit. So yeah, I think this is a very valid point, in my opinion anyway. I think some people will disagree, but yeah, we probably would be getting new players more regularly if the game wasn't so arduous to engage with at a, you know, mid to high level. So I think there are two major takeaways from all of these comments. I'm not going to keep going. There are literally dozens. You can go read them on your own if you want from the last video. But I think it's very clear the community is extremely divided. Now, I made this point in my last video, and I kind of expected the opposite to be true. I thought that the comments would either just be filled with hate for my ideas, or it would be filled with, you know, positive reinforcement of my ideas, but I literally had like a 50-50 split. And I think at the end of the day, that's part of why nothing is going to get done, no matter how many of these videos I make, no matter how much I push the idea of introducing an auction house with limited trades or any other crazy radical idea. And that's just because there's so many players who will always have some shit to say. And that's okay. I don't mean to hate. It's fine. Please keep saying shit. That's how the games gets better. And that's how the developers see what's really important. But yeah, I just wanted to drive home this point of the player base being really divided on this. So if you think your opinion on trade is the law and everyone shares your opinion, you're actually probably wrong. And it's pretty insane how different the wide breadth of ideas for improving or not improving trade really are. All of that being said, I wanted to present another idea based on a reassessment of my own opinions and sort of reconciling with what I read in the comments. And that idea, which was featured heavily in the last 3 comments or so that I read, was the idea of taking all the external tools we have right now, aka Trade Macro, I think, Mercury Trade, and definitely the official trade site, and in some form or another, implementing them into the current game. And this is completely different and separate and not an auction house in any way, but I think we should take some of these awesome tools that have made trade more bearable, especially for the upper high end of people who are making dozens, if not hundreds of trades an hour, and put those tools into the game so everybody has access to them. Maybe you need to opt into them, click a little box, or maybe you don't even get access to them until Act 10, so that way new players aren't super overwhelmed. But yeah, I think people should have the ability to use certain command shortcuts to pull up little menus that maybe give them information on the items, or do a quick search on the trade website, or maybe just bring up the trade website by talking to Kadiro in your hideout. Either way, I think it would be really cool if just all of this functionality was in the game in some form or another, even if it's a little stripped down. Just make it so that we trade in the same way we trade now without having to Alt-Tab and introduce every single new player that joins the game to these tools and saying hey, you're not going to be able to function unless you download these 7 things. So yeah, that's my second solution. It completely stands apart from the solution I introduced in my last video. But that is my solution that I think perfectly holds in line with people who want trade to be easier, people who are fine with how trade is right now, and, last but not least, GGG, who is so resistant to trade because they're terrified of it being easier. Hey, you're not making it easier on this, but you are making it easier for new players to engage with the difficult system that exists right now. So yeah, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. Next week, we're going to be doing an awesome detailed video on crafting, very beginner friendly, but also going into all the different facets you need to know to get started. So make sure you guys check that out. This has been Nathan. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you!
Holy shit, you actually stuck around to the end. I haven't really made any major cuts yet, and this video is 32 minutes, so, wow, thank you. That's pretty crazy. You watch all this time, but anyway, you know who else is super crazy, and I want to thank them, is my Patreon supporters, who are Real Human, Pete, Zikarak, Squally, Zoljan, Coda, Julia, Allen, Keplerk, Fusk, Putzak, and Oro or Ori. Thank you guys so much. You're making what I do possible, especially in this kind of a downtime in between leagues. You're really helping pick up the slack here, so thank you so much. If anyone else is interested in joining the Patreon team, you can check me out at patreon.com/NathanBrotherBob. You can also follow me at on Instagram at NathanWalkerYT, or you can go join the Discord. And I'm not going to try to say that because I'll make a lot of mistakes, and I already made some mistakes, and that would just make this section of the video worse, which it really shouldn't be. It should be the best video, the best part of the video. Ah, crap, there I go again. Oh, God. Oh, geez. Oh, geez. Oh, geez, guys. Oh, okay. Now it's just drowning on. Yikes. See you guys next